Hello and welcome back to By the Board Reviews. Today I'm going to be reviewing Harry Potter Strike Dice Game. This is a competitive dice chucking game by Dieter Nussler, I think, and it was published by Ravensburger. This could last really anywhere between about 5 minutes to about 20 minutes probably. The gameplay is pretty straightforward. You're going to be given a set of dice, depending on how many players, and each of those dice has 6 sides of different spells. And this is where the Harry Potter theming comes in. The whole premise is that you're throwing your dice and you're throwing spells. But really, that's about the limitation of the theme. But how it works is you're taking turns to throw dice, and when those dice match, you take them out of the arena. The last person to continue to have dice is the winner. The spells may do different things. For example, if you were to roll 2 pixies, or 2 pixies were to appear in the arena, then that would prevent you from being able to activate spells, but equally you can't pick up those pixies as a match. As long as those pixies are in play, you can't activate any spells. Wingardium Leviosa is another example of how they've tried to put the theme onto these dice. What happens is when you match those dice, you take the 2 matched dice and you stack the other dice on top of one another. Now, there is a very small window for strategy here. The arena is set up in a way that it has some edges and it's got a spongy bottom, so that means that there's a little bit of movement for bounce, and you can try and hit the die against the edge. But that's really about it. This is a very, very, very luck-based game. It's very simple, it's very easy to teach, and the reference guide's very, very clear. The rulebook is a lot bigger than it actually needs to be because it has pretty much all the languages in it. So the entirety of the rulebook is about 4 pages of this, and most of it is taken up by reference to what each of the sides of the die does. So this game takes a couple of minutes to explain at its longest. You may have noticed that the box is the arena, which is quite nice in terms of trying to maximise the space, but it's pretty uninspiring. The most interesting thing about this is the dice, and there aren't that many more components, so they don't have a lot to go with. The gold and the purple are a nice contrast, but it really feels like they could have put a bit more effort in, maybe with some artwork on the plastic or something like that, just to make it look a bit more dynamic, look a bit more arena-y. Perhaps you could put some art around the edges. The dice could be a little bit heavier. For an adult, these are really quite light to throw, but perhaps that makes it a bit easier for the movement within the arena. I'm not sure, but for me, I probably would prefer them to be a bit heavier. The symbols on them, though, are really nice. They seem to be well painted, nice and deep as well, so you know that that's not going to come off very easily with a lot of extended use. In terms of accessibility, again, this is really accessible. You don't even need to really like Harry Potter at all in order to play this game. It's just that they've kind of plastered that theme on and tried to make the spells match, but it doesn't really matter. There's non-verbal communication, again, so if you've got someone who is deaf or hard of hearing, this should be a very straightforward game to explain, and it's be quite an easy thing for them to read, and we've got the reference book as well. In terms of colour blindness, again, the symbols are very, very distinct. The colours don't really matter that much, and they seem to be fairly diverse, although we've got green and red on here, which might not be the perfect combination. This is a widely accessible game. Overall, though, this is not a game that I really want to own. It's too luck-based for me, and there isn't a lot of tension, and there's not a lot that you can do to adjust the dice. So with dice, what it's really nice to be able to do sometimes in some games is actually have an influence on them. So you might have a special power which lets you rotate those dice around, or influence other people's throws, but with this, it's simply taking your turns, chucking your dice in, see if anything comes out. And it's just not very dynamic. It's perhaps good for small children who have short attention spans, but in terms of a game, even to play between big games, it's not particularly interesting. The components are fine, the art is fine, the box art is standard Harry Potter. It's not a terrible game, but it's not a particularly interesting one either. So I wouldn't object to playing this if someone really wanted to play but it's certainly not a game I'll ever opt to own. I hope that was a relatively short, nice review. You get a bit of an overview as to how this game, what this game's about. It is a very, very simple game. So thanks for watching that very short and sweet review of Harry Potter Strike the Dice Game. I hope that was helpful, and see you later. Bye!